everybody. Sorry to scare you. Welcome to the Athenaeum, and welcome to our fourth Arts and Culture Series lecture. We've initiated this Arts and Culture Series lecture program this year, and it's been a privilege to welcome a lot of different artists and authors and historians and other people who are very passionate about the Arts and Culture Series. So tonight I have a very special honor of introducing my husband, Rodney. Many of you know Rodney. He's a fine arts teacher at the Academy. His formal bio is on the paper that you have in front of you, so I don't need to go over that. I've known Rodney for 32 years. We were high school sweethearts. We both went to the Academy, and I've watched him grow as an artist all my life. And you're in for a real treat. Tonight he's going to be talking about all the different materials that and these have been handed down by the great masters from Rembrandt on down. He's going to be talking about pigments and palettes and canvas and what he does when he creates his paintings. Two of his paintings are here behind the demonstration. He will keep this up for questions and answers afterwards. And he has his studio in Peacham. If anyone's interested in learning a little bit more about it, he's more than welcome to welcome people over there to see his studio. And he's corrected me twice now in the press release that I wrote. I forgot to mention his website, so he was like, well, you forgot to mention the website. So it's rodneyreis.com. And again, when I did the flyer, I forgot the website again. So it's rodneyreis.com. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce my husband, Rodney Reis.
Well, thank you all for coming out tonight in this hot night. This should be maybe about an hour long, but thank you again for coming. I look around and I just say, wow, I can finally tell people that I actually hung with Bierstadt, Gifford, Cropsey. I mean, really, how many people can do that? I'm going to use it, so anyways. Well, today I want to talk to you about the materials that were used from the great masters, pretty much starting from the Renaissance time. That's the materials that I use and use them to kind of paint in the Hudson River style. Then I want to talk to you about the importance of plein air. Why is it important to do a sketch? Why did the artist do that? And I'll do that as I work down to the table here. So I'm going to talk about the different types of materials and mediums. All of these they're not in any order, but you need all of them to paint. You're going to need canvas or some sort of substrate to paint on, either panel or canvas. Some did use copper. You're also going to need your painting medium. You need to get that set up. That's going to be the vehicle for your pigment. And then you're going to have to mix your paint with another vehicle to soften it up. Then I'll go down through the easel and what they brought into the field with them. I'll start off with panels. Panels go way back. These go back to the Egyptian times. They weren't as sophisticated as they became in the 16th century. 16th century, that's when they started to put on rabbit skin glue and whiting and chalk. Whiting is calcium carbonate, okay, just like talc. And to give it this nice kind of yellow tone, to take away that starkness of white, they use a French rouge chalk, and this comes from France as well. This comes in a lot of different earth tones. Just happens to be a tone that I like to use. So how this process works with these panels, and this recipe goes back to the 16th century. Rubens used it quite a bit. Now panels, this is a rather small panel, 10 by 14. Rubens has done work up to 10 feet by 7 feet, wood panels. Now wood panels back then were traditionally oak, fir, no, not fir, oak, maple, and Baltic birch. They were tight-knit grain, so they wouldn't really split. When Rubens worked that big and that large, he had support structures underneath it to prevent it from warping. So the process in making this takes a lot of time. You have to get the wood. Now today we paint on masonite. It's very stable. It's tempered masonite. It's been used since, well, the mid-1800s. It's a very stable source. So how this works is rabbit skin glue, which is an animal hide glue. Remember back then, in the 1800s, or in the Renaissance, there was no DuPont. Everything was natural. And you're going to see a lot of similarities with everything that came from nature. They were able to make things work. So rabbit skin glue, it gets boiled down in a double boiler with a mixture of water and a certain amount of rabbit skin glue, different ratios. I can give you that at another time. First, you seal the panel. The panel is sealed with rabbit skin glue twice, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. That seals it. Then you take 2 scrubbing coats once you start to make, so you've done your rabbit skin glue. Next you're going to make is the gesso that goes on top, which becomes the ground on which you're going to paint on. It's a couple parts of the whiting, calcium carbonate, and the French rouge mixed together in a slurry, almost the consistency of really, really heavy, thick cream. That gets brushed on, scrubbed on, 2 coats there, let it sit. Let it sit till it almost starts to dry. When it's just about ready to dry, then you start brushing on another coat, and you alternate patterns. So first coat's going this way, second coat's going this way, and so forth and so forth. So you got 7 coats there. After that, you let it dry for 24 hours, and then it's sanded. Back then, they had a hand sander. Today, thank goodness for the orbital sander. You can really go pretty quick. So now, once this dries, it's marble dust, and marble is very porous, and it wants to pull moisture. You know, nobody really has marble countertops because they're very porous. You put a glass of wine down, it's going to pull it down. It's going to be stained forever. So to seal that, you would take 2 more coats of rabbit skin glue, put that on, let that dry. Then once it dries, you're going to want to give it a tint. Now, when I mean tinting is, this is a store-bought panel. It's stark white. That's pretty scary. And it really is. I mean, you look at it, it's like, oh, how am I going to fill that up? Also, you want to tone it. Toning kind of gives a harmony to a painting. It pulls in all of the colors so everything kind of flows together. It also mutes them. If I were to put blue on a white panel, it would be extremely to its rich, pure pigment. It'd be very, very bright. If I put blue on this, it's going to knock it down, become softer to the eye. That's the way nature is. It's really, really, really soft. So once you tone it down, usually an earth pigment. I like to use Indian red. It's a small amount of dry pigment, earth pigment, and mix that into the rabbit skin glue for a really thin coat. And you brush that on just once. Just let the brush hit it, and you're done. Let that dry. And then it becomes a really nice, rich, smooth surface, but it feels it has some tooth. I'm going to pass this around. I want you to feel it. But that goes back to the Renaissance. Rubens painted on something almost identical to that. So panels came out first. Canvas came out second. This is a typical canvas that I work on. Canvas came about around the 16th century. That's when it really started to gain popularity. The really good canvases are made out of linen. Linen is from the flax, right? Sorry, flax. And flax is in a lot of this chemistry here. So what this process is, you've got flax is great because it's a natural repellent to water and moisture. A lot of people have controversies, oh, what's better, cotton canvas or linen canvas? I lean towards more the linen because it has a natural property of pushing away moisture, doesn't gather it. A lot of sails were made on ships were made out of that as well. Really, really durable. So how this is made is this, I usually use a Belgian linen. It does come pre-primed. I do have to save a little bit of time, but it's lead primed. So I cut it to size. So it already comes from Belgium, already sized in lead. I usually work, I've started on panels, so traditionally I like a nice smooth surface to paint on. I don't like a lot of tooth. I don't like to have a lot of where it grabs it. I'd rather have just a smooth surface. So in order for that to happen, I have to take lead, regular lead paint, traditional gambling artist titanium white lead. I'll take some Indian red, mix a little bit of that into it, make a nice pile. I'll take some mastic, which I'll talk about mastic soon, a couple drops of mastic, and a couple drops of distilled terps. And I'll get into distilled terps. Make a nice slurry. It's thinner than toothpaste, almost like yogurt consistency. And put that on top and just trowel it across, take that, put it away for 3 weeks, and then it's ready to paint on. Yes?
When you say trowel, do you mean with a knife?
Yeah, with a, just trowel it on and it'll dry. And this is rather smooth. I like to follow the traditionalist. On these canvases, I use copper tack, which they use. It doesn't rust. It doesn't rust. Today, you go in a store, you get one of these things. It's all stapled, really nice, tacky plastic stretchers for you when it gets, and it's cotton. So, but there's nothing wrong with painting on this. I'm just gearing towards trying to get the effect that these great artists did. And it's using their materials, trying to understand their relationships with one another, and then to help get those effects. Lightweight to go in the field. This is cotton, acid-free watercolor paper, and it's done the exact same way as that panel that's coming around, but not as many coats. A sealing coat of rabbit skin glue, a couple coats of the whiting. I'll do this at the very end when I make a bunch of panels. I'll do this. This is great to take out in the field, put on a field easel. It's really light. All these guys did it, and it works out really well. If I like it enough, I want to push it a little bit more, I can go ahead and take rabbit skin glue and a panel and just glue it to that panel, and it will be there. It'll be there for a long time. Okay, so we've got the panel, we have canvas. Now I want to go into mixing mediums, getting that medium. Now there's lots of mediums out there, there's no right or wrong way, but there's some issues that have popped up over time. Linseed oil. Linseed oil was very popular as a medium to move the paint, to thin the paint, but what had happened is over time it starts to darken. It gets brown, it gets ruddy. So a lot of the older paintings, people think, oh wow, they painted really dark. No, they didn't. They painted really vibrant colors, but over time, with the linseed oil, it darkened it. With also, during the Renaissance, they only had verdigris, which was a green. That's copper-based. That also turned brown and ruddy. So these paintings weren't all brown and ruddy. They were pretty bright and vibrant. But over time, these things happen. If you look at Rembrandt or Frans Hals, those guys, their paintings have never died back. They have not died back at all. They've held their vitality because of the mediums that they used. So let's talk about one ingredient. It's called larch. This is from the larch tree. It's a larch turpentine. It grows primarily in the northern regions of Canada and the upper regions of Russia. It's a really thick resin. It's got a beautiful amber color to it. Really nice. Very expensive. It's hard to come by, but that is used for, best way I can describe it is, if you look at, I'm sure you've seen those amber pieces of jewelry with an insect on the inside of it. That's pure amber. That's exactly what this is. It just ran down the tree, an insect got stuck into it, and it hardened up. So these paintings are the exact same thing. Really, really tough when you use this, but they're also flexible. So flexible is nice when you have humidity and different temperatures. So how this is made, it's called fusing. Alchemy, I swear, it came from the kitchen. It's all different, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, temperature, you're careful of this, don't let it rise too much. This medium is made from refined terps and larch. The larch is put into a pan. I usually do it in the summertime outside on a hot plate. It's volatile, extremely flammable, very dangerous. I do it away from the barn. I'm outside, upwind from the fumes. It's not good to breathe in. I bring this up to 268 degrees. So the larch is in there a certain amount. Now this recipe is 1 part larch, 2 parts terps. Bring it up to 280 degrees. As it starts to boil, I take it off the hot plate, put it aside on a flat surface, pour in 2 parts terps, and stir it, and that fuses them together. It changes the molecules, it changes the atom structure, it all becomes one. It becomes one, its own piece. So that is painting and grinding. That is basically, thank you. I use a 3-part system to paint with, and it's called painting wet on wet. This allows you to go ahead and paint like your scrubbing paint, your scrubbing drawing. So I say I do this painting here. I want to lay out my composition. I want to lay down a tone. I can scrub in this area in here, get things kind of a little bit of dark, because oil painting you work from dark to light. Scrub in that darkness, get it in there, and within 2 minutes it's dry. Tacky, but dry, okay? Then I can take part 3, which has less terps in it and more larch in it. And so it becomes fatty. So the rule of painting in oils is you want to paint from lean to fat. You want to paint with a medium doesn't have a lot of oils into it, and then kind of layer it on top. If you go the opposite way, you paint fat on, and then put lean on top of it, you're going to cut right down through that surface. Because the lean is really volatile. It has a lot of terps in it. It's going to cut right through it. It's going to erase what you did. Then there's a 3rd step on top of it, which is really, really, it's pretty thick. This is the painting medium. This is the painting and grinding. So there's more terps in here. It's more fatty in here. And I forgot the other one, so I'm sorry. But it's in between these two. So I can paint in stages. I can draw on top of a wet painting and keep going. That's a problem with a lot of, if you're just painting with linseed oil, as soon as you put it down, you're going to have to wait weeks or days. With this, I can just keep going. I can draw on top. I can write into it. I can do all kinds of grass work with it. It's a really versatile medium. That is as close as to what they think Caravaggio used or what Rembrandt had used. Van Eyck, the artist Van Eyck, got a hold of a Caravaggio. Anybody seen Caravaggio's work? Absolutely stunning. And he was a kind of a mad sorts, but he was a terrific, accomplished painter. And he got a hold of one of Caravaggio's works and actually stripped it right down to the bare, destroyed the whole painting, trying to figure out what he used in that painting. And he just stripped it away. I'm sure if you knew Caravaggio, if he found out about that, he probably would have done something bad to him. So he was a pretty crazy character. So then so we've got the canvas, we've got the panels, we've got the grinding medium. Oh, I forgot to tell you also, there's another medium here, I picked this up before. It's a 3-part medium. I use it quite a bit in the field. If I'm doing a small little sketch, it does everything that I told you that all of these do, almost pretty close without cutting through things. It gets tacky really quick. I let you draw on top of it if you wait. So maybe you work on an area of painting for a little bit, let that dry, work over here, and then go back over here, and just keep going back and forth, and you'll be able to layer with this 3-part medium. This is all made up of sun-thickened linseed oil, English terps, and Damar varnish, which is a lot of people use Damar varnish as a glossy coat afterwards. And I'll talk to you about glossy coats when remind me, I go all over the place. And Mastic. Mastic is incredible. This stuff comes from Greece, and I need some help here. There's a big island called Chios, C-H-I-O-S, C-H-I, no, C-H-O-I-S. How do you say that, Choice? Or whatever, it's a big island off of Greece. Okay, and Mastic. Now this stuff has been around for a long, long time. I'll let you come up here and smell this. It's really, it's piney. It smells like pine. And how this is produced is in early spring and into late September. The island is a big product for this island. They go out to these trees. They're like apple orchards, but they're mastic orchards. And they go out and they scrub down all the trunks of the trees and the bigger branches that kind of come out. So the bigger carrying branches. They wash them down, soap and water, clean them off, and they take cheesecloth, put the cheesecloth around the base of that tree, and then they scratch the tree. They rake it, they scratch it, almost like a rubber tree, you know, they cut it, they scratch it, and it starts to weep. It starts to cry out these, and this is exactly how they come off. They're like little teardrops. And this has been used for, it's incredible, all this stuff has been used for some sort of medicine. This helps with cuts, small abrasions, ground down into a powder. It's also been used for, it's used for baking. It's also used for mastic ice cream, believe it or not. And it's been used in paintings for hundreds of years. So all this comes down and then they package it up and sell it. Where you get this is, I found a place in Brooklyn, a Greek supply place for baking goods, and you buy it there. So they all use it for baking. I've actually tried to taste it. It doesn't taste very good. You know, it's not lethal or anything. So, but how this works is, it is put in a mortar and pestle. It's all crushed down. Crush that up to a fine powder. Put it in cheesecloth. Put it in English distilled terps, and that dissolves it. And this is like a babysitting thing. Every morning you gotta get up, you put it in the windowsill and you shake it. Next morning you get up and you shake it again, and you just keep, it dissolves and dissolves and dissolves. And that part of the mastic also goes into this medium. Mastic is also used, it's a great over varnish. So you get a painting done, an over varnish is the only reason you have an over varnish is just to protect the painting. An over varnish is meant to be taken off. When it gets dirty, it's meant to be taken off. Not scrubbed down like what they did to the Sistine Chapel, but it's meant to be taken off and then a new mastic layer to be put onto it. Mastic is really good because it's very flexible. It moves with humidity. When that canvas moves, like the beer stout, I hate to point that out, but in this humid, it's taking that water in. And then when it gets cold out, there's less water vapor in the air, and it kind of goes back. Mastic will shrink and grow with that painting, so you won't get all those checks and cracks. Damar varnish, what I just showed you, that will give you checks just using it straight onto a painting. So that's that part. I thought that was pretty cool. You can eat that and paint with it. Mixing paint. These pigments, any color pigment you see, these right here are all from, I can't tell you all of the names of them, but they're all natural sources. They're all heavy metals, basically. Very toxic in itself, and then this gets mixed with lead, the white, and I'll show you how that works later on. So you want to wear a mask, gloves, and treat it with respect. Don't eat while you paint. But to give you ultramarine blue, this, believe it or not, the biggest supplier of this is Afghanistan. Biggest supplier of them. Cobalt blue has become pretty expensive now because It's been used for a coating over high turbine jet engines. It's a coating they put on top of it. So that has raised the price of blue. Blue has always been expensive. There used to, during the Renaissance, they found roots that had blue in it, beetles, all kinds of stuff to make their pigments. Any earth pigment you see, the browns, umbers, ochres, this is basically clay that is dug up. I mean, you can paint with anything. You can paint with Vermont soil. All you got to do is grind it up and add some medium. I went to Prince Edward Island, and they had this beautiful red sand over there. I ground that up, and I just did a little painting right there with it. And it's the exact same thing. It's just a natural element. But how this works is I'm going to grind up a little slab right here for you. It's non-toxic, okay? There's no bad stuff in this one. I'm not going to mix any lead with it. I just want to show you how this works for every bit. Now, usually I have a slab. Marble is the best surface to grind on. Glass is, I'm sorry to say, even better, but it makes you feel like you're in the Renaissance, so why not? You know, so I got a big slab at home. I work on that. Mortise, so you grind your paint on down. Okay, I usually do when I tube up a section, I usually do about maybe size of a baseball amount of clay. That's a lot of medium and pigment. So first thing is to take some medium out. And this is what differs from what you get today in today's paint stores. Today's paints are filled with fillers and extenders. Extenders are, I could take a baseball amount of clay, and I want to make 2 baseballs, so I get this extender, and this chemical, and I put it into that, and I can make 2 sizes now, okay? And it's even cheaper. So Cobalt's really expensive. I want to kind of boost it. I use the extender. But now, pretend this ball of paint was like really toothpastey kind of consistency. Now you add the extender to it, it's got no body to it. So what do you do to bring back that body? Add some more stuff to it. So let's add some more filler to it. We'll add a filler to it, and it'll bring it back to that toothpaste consistency. And there's all kinds of different stuff they put into it. They put in different types of dryers into it, Cobalt dryers, nothing wrong with that. But you can end up with some cracking again. And I just want to make sure that I know what I'm painting with. So the only thing that I use, the clearest thing, and we talked about, I don't have a glass thing here, but linseed oil is usually, use a lot of it, is about the color of larch, okay? Poppy seed, all kinds of different stuff. I just choose walnut oil. It just seems to me to be the cleanest, the purest, so I get to see what that cobalt blue really looks like, and so I don't mud it down. This is about as clear as you're going to get. So I make a little pool. Add some walnut oil. And I'll show this to everybody here. You just keep mixing it back and forth. And what's great about natural, real good pigment is you can feel the granulars of each little piece. So this right now, it's a little runny. So I'd have to add some more pigment to it. See if I can get that back. Now we're getting close. It's still runny. I'm gonna move on from here, but it would all I have to do now is just add more pigment to it, and it'll start to stiffen up, stiffen up, stiffen up. I want to help it along though. I want to have it dry a little bit. If I leave this sitting out, it's going to take weeks for it to dry. The method I'm using here, it helps dry the paint, but I want to help speed it along a little bit. So what I'll do is I'll take a little bit of mastic, put a couple drops in there, kind of help it along, and it'll stay there. And it'll also help it when I'm out painting in the field. So basically what you see here is it's a setup of what the Hudson River School, what they'd used. They went hiking. They went out in the woods. They were observers of nature. They didn't have cameras back then. So they had to go out and they had to take a field sketch to do a study. And they would go out and they would do an in-depth sketch of what they were looking at. Okay, they'd do a sketch, they'd take notes. What time of day it is? What's the humidity level? What's the sun direction? What color are the mountains? Are they a phthalo blue, phthalo green? Are they really violet? So they would put down all these notes because they didn't have that digital camera. Then they would do a small study, okay? And that was just an idea of setting up their composition, pushing them, and to know where is my highlight going to be? Where do I want the viewer's eye to go? I want to grab some of those colors that I'm seeing right now, and I want to get them down here. So when I take all this back to the studio, okay, I've got this information here, I know what time of day it is, and you have this. What's neat about this system is, you think about it, I know when I learn something, I have to read it, I have to write it, and I have to do it. I just can't read it and then just kind of go off from there. I have to this really kind of beats it into your brain. So by the time you get back to the studio, and all these paintings were done in the studio, they weren't done outside, plein air, they'd have this reference. So that's exactly the same thing I do. 1, 2, 3. And things are going to change. I mean, trees are going to grow a little bit, you know, the grass might get a little bit taller, but that's, you know, artistic license, you know, that's what goes on from there. So the painting outside the plein air experience, it's you're outside, you feel it, you see it, you remember that. You think about the human eye. The human eye, you can see, everybody can see here, you can see 10 million colors. 10 million colors. A camera can only see 3 colors: blue, red, and green. And out of those 3, it can only depict 265 of each, of different values. So try it sometime. Take a digital camera, look at a view, take a picture, look at the camera, and you look at the view, look at the camera, look at the view, look at the camera, and you're going to see a big difference. You're going to say, oh my gosh, I see more than what this camera picked up. The camera cannot duplicate it. There's so many layers. You think about what's around you outside. A day like today, the past couple weeks, laden with moisture, little water droplets in the air, and each one is like it's like a rainbow, and it diffuses the light, bounces all around. It's a prismatic experience. The camera cannot pick that up. So painting outside, these guys were able to see that, feel the atmosphere, and then be able to paint the atmosphere. You can almost feel that water vapor coming off Yosemite Falls. Incredible. So they would go up, you know, they're hiking in, they've got mules carrying this stuff in, they're going up these hills. They want a really lightweight easel, okay? Small little paint box. This is a small version of my studio one. But it has everything that I have pretty much there. So I can paint, I can get my color down here, and I can work onto the panel here. Field umbrella, real important. It keeps the sun off and helps with sun direction. There's a great painting with Thomas Cole in Massachusetts overlooking the Oxbow. And anybody seen that painting? And it's really cool because it's like him just sitting there like this. He's like looking back like, you see me? It's almost like trying to find Waldo. He's just sitting there looking like, you see me? And you see his umbrella sticking out. And it's the exact same thing. It's come in really handy. It's lightweight, it's portable. Field easel, nice to sit down every now and then, collapses down. A hat, besides a fashion statement, it really, really works. You all just do me a favor. Go like this, pretend you got a brim of a hat, and look towards the beer stat. Go like this. Now take your hands away. You see the light come down? So now you control that light. You can really control it. So if you're a painter, get a hat. It's the best thing. It really, really, it isolates you. It also helps you frame in your subject matter. At least this plane, it does for me. So I don't start wandering all over the place, chasing things. A bag with all your stuff in it, bug spray, extra brushes, a little bit of rope in case you have to propel down a side of a hill. I wish I had some rope sometimes. So that's pretty much it. You're going to want some extra medium and such, but there are some really good stories, and I have some books I want to share with you later on if you're interested in going further into it. Bierstadt is talking about when he was out in New Hampshire painting, in the Catskills, and they were swarmed by black flies and mosquitoes, and they were there with twigs and branches. They're going like this, and they're trying to paint. I mean, really, really hard to do. I mean, and it breaks your sense of consciousness. It breaks that. So how I paint, and what is this right here, the sheep. The artist is from Belgium, and it's a long German name. I can't remember it. But anyways, there's a sheep one right here. That's painted on panel. The one I passed around to you, painted on panel. And I believe that's a cherry panel. I've seen it out of its frame before. I think it's a cherry panel. Hasn't cracked. It's held up pretty well. I talked about toning before really quick. Did I break that? Toning, I tone with a pink, because can everybody hear me now? Right. It gives it a pink atmosphere and pulls everything together. If you look at Gifford's painting here, if you look really, really close, and I mean get your nose up on it, but don't touch your nose on it, just look at it, you're going to see a couple things. An under drawing, where he drew out everything, okay? Then he covered that with a drying medium, so it would set up, so when he painted on top of it, he wouldn't erase his lines. So you'll see that. You'll see it pretty much on the horizon line, going on up, and also down into the hills in the mid-ground. And then if you look at the paint layer on there, he painted really, really thin. You don't have to gob paint on. You can have this work to your advantage. And he did. You can see that pink tone, like, oh my gosh, there it is. And a lot of these guys work this way. Bierstadt worked the same way. He toned that, and he worked really, really thin, worked impasto really heavy in the foreground, okay, because things in the foreground always appear heavier, darker. Mid-plane, things start to diminish, and in the background, they kind of fuzz out. So I try to paint the same way, and a lot of my paintings, you'll see in the sky, you can see pink panel in here. Really heavy is work from light, and you work from dark to light, you're going to see more paint. If you look closely at the interior here, you're going to see a panel in the distance scrubbed in there. So it's painting really thin. You don't have to paint really, really thick. What else am I thinking of? So, when you look at a painting now, you go into any museum, look at not just, wow, how they did that. I mean, the craftsmanship, but they were also technicians, and they knew how things work and how they reacted to one another. So all this work, it took many months of work, of diligent work for that. Look how much time it takes before the brush even hits the canvas or the panel. It's a huge amount of work. So I hope that helps, and if there are any questions, I'd be happy to help answer them. Yes?
Were there many supply stores or over at that time of your shots?
They had what they were colorists, and you go down to the colorist and get your paint there. Now, colorists, you would get your paint in actually sacks of pigment testing. There were no tubes. The modern day tube, I forgot to show you that. The modern day tube was invented in 1834. Oh no, I'm sorry, 1842. Okay, I'm sorry, 1842. That was a big help. The Bierstadt they talked about when they went out west, they would ship out their pigments in their boxes, and the bladders would explode just from bustling around and doing that. No, and so, you know, I'm going to Arizona next Saturday to paint with some friends out there, paint the desert, and I can't ship all this, I can't bring it on the plane, and I can't ship it because it's really heavy, so I bet you Bierstadt wish he had saran wrap. So I put it in saran wrap and made little balls and then put it in Tupperware. He didn't have Tupperware then either, so. But, yeah, but they would go to the colorist. Yeah.
Can you just explain a little bit more about once you have the pigment with the linseed oil, once you have the little, you know, marble slab there?
Yep.
How does that mix with the medium that you boiled up?
Oh, I'm sorry,
Do
yes, okay.
Is that on the artist's palette,
Okay.
or do you make a little pot?
No, very good, I forgot that. So usually, and I didn't explain the palette, but I get put out little, just take the tube, I've already tubed all this up, and I squirt these colors out here. Now they're like toothpaste. I want to thin it down. So I have my medium here in a little tray. I just take a little bit, almost like you're painting with watercolor. Wet it down, thin it out to whatever consistency you want. So it works that way. I just forgot all about that. Does that answer your question? Yeah. So you just go back and forth. So once you do your first one, you let that dry, wait, and you go back and you can paint right on top of it. And this system right here, I would be remiss if I didn't say anything. Frank Dumont was an art instructor at the Art Students League for 54 years. His atelier, his student, was my master teacher, Frank Mason, who taught there for 50 years. He passed away a couple years ago. Those two men, great artists, developed this palette. It's not, okay, it's a dark blue day, I'm gonna get the dark blue and put the dark blue in there. It's like playing the piano. It's different notes of color and tone mixed together. So the greens are just not, okay, the foreground is dark, let me take a dark green, there's my green. I'm gonna go further back, let me take a lighter one. It's a mixture of all these. I'm always learning a new way of mixing color with it.
Rodney, I have kind of a chicken or the egg, what came first question.
Yeah.
Did you have an interest in art and painting first, and then you were attracted to this style, or you knew very early on, this is the type of painting I want to do, and I want to learn how to do it? What attracted you, and how did you go about it?
I've always had an affinity for art. I was always coming here when I was about 15, and just look like a little nerdy kid coming in here, looking around, and just like, how do they do that? I started painting in watercolor. It was pretty heavy in watercolor up until '96. But after going to museums, and you don't see a lot of watercolors in museums, and there's nothing wrong with watercolor. Actually, watercolor is the hardest medium to paint with, because once you put it down, you can't take it off. And watercolor, you work from light to dark, which is opposite. And I think why this attracted me, like Frank Mason, how he taught, how the old masters painted, was they painted very thinly, and they painted in layers. And that struck a chord with me because I was painting that way already with watercolor. I was painting very loose and wet. And so I switched from watercolor to oils in '96. And I'm still learning every day, so.
Your palette, would that be the same thing as if you squeeze the store-bought oils in there?
No. Good question. Cobalt, you know.
That's just the dry stuff.
Well, think of this as like toothpaste in here, little mounds. So I would mix up ultramarine for the sky is what I use, and I would take lead white and I would do a gradation scale by adding, you know, a big clump of white. I add a little bit of blue to it, and it would become my lightest blue. And then I add more and more pigment to get darker and darker and darker to that lead paint.
Are those little shells?
Yeah, this is actually a cigar box. Just whatever you find around the place, you gotta, you know, I like building things too, and but what's nice about this is it packs up, you know. So I go out in the field, I can open it up, I had this in Paris when we were in France, and I just put a little, you know, board across there, and I could sit right lean against the building and just kind of paint. Nobody sees me. And just paint back. When I get done, just pack it up and go. I've had it to Ireland. I'm taking this out to Arizona. It's this really neat. Lime Academy, they have an exhibit down there with some of the earlier painters, and they have these little jewel boxes these guys made, like little secret compartments. You could open it up and there'd be a place you could paint, slide it back in there and walk out. Little gems, really, really neat stuff.
You like the smooth, shiny finish.
Okay, smooth, shiny finish. That is not a glaze, not a Mastic glaze put on that. This medium right here dries that way. It dries shiny. What's nice about this is not just the shininess. Think of a chocolate chip cookie. Okay, think of a chocolate chip cookie. All of the chocolate chips, those are all the particles of pigment. All the dough, think about that is the medium. So you've got all these little particles floating in there, and it dries. It dries really hard because of the larch, the amber. What's nice about that is you think about how light this panel works is light hits it, refracts, hits the panel, bounces through, and it hits all those different layers and different angles of where those, where all the pigment has settled, and it gives you that beautiful tonality to it. So it's not, I mean, a lot of days people just paint, they paint with maybe just terps and pigment, and it dries flat. And then they go ahead and they wash over with a nice glaze, and voila. Well, it's not voila. It's not even close to the quality of what these guys did, or what the Renaissance did.
Is it important for you to use lead? Why can't you use zinc or titanium white?
They're pretty close. I've used all of them.
Yeah.
Yep.
I wondered if you know Williamsburg paints.
Williamsburg paints, yes.
Yes, do you think very little of them?
They're a good student grade. For a professional grade, and I do buy some tube paint. I mean, there's some stuff that, like magnesium, I buy. Vasari is a very good one. They're down in New York. Believe it or not, Winsor Newton is still very, very good. And Winsor Newton actually invented the tube.
You mentioned Vermont. Do you know Arthur Maynard?
No, I can't off the hand. No, I don't. Paintbrushes? I looked and looked, and I've been looking, and there's not a lot of, I think they must have bought them from the colorist. There's more information about the ateliers in the Renaissance time where they made brushes for their master. The ateliers were his assistant. They also painted on the paintings of the great masters. The master didn't do everything. He might have done the figure, you know, might have done the head. Go ahead, you're ready, go ahead and do an arm or do the background or something. But there was not much about, at this time period, where they got their brushes. There's more about that in the Renaissance. Yes, I mean.
I don't know if you've read the story, The Girl with the Pearl Earring.
I'm not a reader, but I saw the movie.
Well, I haven't seen the movie, so I don't know how they treated the segments about her mixing paints and pigments for him. Would that be done for a master by an assistant?
Yeah. The atelier, the assistant would get up early in the morning, mix out his palette. This is what I need tomorrow. He would get up in the morning, mix it all up. The master would come down and just start to paint. Put his brush down. I'm done. Walk away. Clean my brushes. That's the worst part, is cleaning brushes.
What do you have to clean up?
Excuse me? There's a great soap out there. I wash them every time I use them. I mean, some people don't wash them for weeks, but to keep them nice and vibrant. Brushes are expensive. Kolinsky is one of the best sable-haired brushes, and they go for $125 a piece. You know. What? Kolinsky.
You use soaps. I mean, you mean this kind they sell like to take like that?
Yes. Yep. That's like it's like in a tub. Yeah, that's the stuff. Great stuff. Yeah.
If you go to a yard sale and you find a paint and somebody says, "Oh, this is the Vinci," then how would you trace it?
Say that again.
If you go to a yard sale and you find a painting, and then somebody said, "Oh, this is from Da Vinci," how would you be able to prove that it's Da Vinci?
Well, if anybody tells you that they're selling a Da Vinci, I would definitely bring it to an appraiser. Yeah. Oh yeah, they can do a color analysis of it, paint analysis. Was that paint available at a certain time? Was that varnish available at that time? You know, if they see traces of modern day chemistry in there, there's no way it's going to be, you know, rolled over.
Would you repeat again what the other mediums are other than linseed oil? You had your special one that you mixed, but you said something about walnut being very clean.
Yeah, walnut for mixing that, get the body of the paint, getting the dry to that. Poppy oil is a very good one as well. It's very clean. You want the cleanest. I would stay away from linseed. It darkens, yeah.
And we use the walnut oil with conventional paints.
Conventional paint, such as conventional. Really too paint. You're going to thin it out. It's going to become really mushy. I would just stay with your whatever medium you're using. Use that to thin out your paint. The more oil you add to it, the fattier it's going to become, and it's going to take a long time for it to dry.
I'm fascinated that you're going to the desert in the summertime.
I'm excited and I'm scared at the same time.
I'm wondering if you choose early morning. Do you like the morning light? Is that
Perfect.
okay?
Yeah. Great. The best time I like to paint is from anytime from sunrise to about 10 o'clock. You get a lot of beautiful warm light then. Once you get past 10 to about 12, the sun is high and becomes flat light, and there's not a lot going on. It's pretty kind of ruddy out. Around 4 o'clock, I like to be out until dusk, until you can't see anymore. That's when all because remember, it's the light thing, what's happened, it's the water vapor. In the morning, there's a lot of water vapor, a lot of fog around in the valleys. That water vapor is dissipated everywhere else. Once you get in the daytime, the sun now has evaporated all that water vapor, and it becomes very flat, too. There's not a lot of action going on. And then you become towards the evening, the water vapor starts to come back up again because the sun's going down. So that's a really great time to paint. But also, interior, best time to paint is the middle of the day. So you can do a painting in the morning, you can go into the woods and do a painting because it's never really going to change in there. You know, find your highlight, your sense of interest, stay with that, don't chase it, and then once it gets around 4 o'clock, you know, go out and do an evening painting.
Can you just talk a little bit about what your kind of thought process is going from what you do in the outdoors? You take the sketches, you make the little oil sketch, then you take it into the studio and you make a painting like that. Mm-hmm. You're not trying to recreate that scene. What are you trying to do there? Right. What's your thought process?
I'm not trying to go for a photograph. I'm trying to set a mood, a tone. I mean, something calming. Most of my paintings, I think I try to be a calming, a place of meditation. Just, it's you know, without getting weird. It just, you know, you paint a tree, you become that tree. You start painting it. You know, you're in the field, you start painting the field. You're okay. Now, how does the grass grow? How would the wind affect it? Where would it go? You know, I just try to find the beauty within nature. I mean, I'm sure you've been driving down the road and it's really dark around, and all of a sudden you see on the side of a hill, you see where the sun breaks through and hits this one patch. It's like, oh my gosh, thank you. That's incredible, Lord, thank you. You know, or you're in the woods and you see these beautiful things happening. It's like, that's beauty to me. That's the most beautiful thing. Besides my wife. But thank you very much. So again, when you look at a painting in any museum, think of all that work went behind it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks.